I did have the opportunity to run for office against our former Congressman, Matt Gaetz. If we're going to call America out and try to help America with the bad breath, as an analogy that we may be having right now, we're continuing to bear witness each day about things that are chipping away at the fabric of the ideal for America. And so how do you counter that? First, you call out the reality. What we're seeing each day, it just doesn't feel good. And then the other, I think, is very practical from the standpoint that we have to have some different voices in the political arena.
Now, you identify, your pronouns are Republican, right? That's how you identify as a Republican? I'm Scott Barry Kaufman.
And I'm Allison Reese.
I'm a psychologist.
And I'm an improv comedian.
And using the affirmative powers of yes and, we're going to attempt to do the impossible.
Mend our cultural and political divide. This might get awkward. Awkward. Today's guest is a retired Navy officer. He runs the Missouri Leadership Academy in St. Louis. And yes, in 2024, he ran for Congress against Matt Gaetz and Matt Gaetz' filler and Botox.
I heard it was some really stiff competition. In this episode, we'll see Aaron's favorite scene from Ted Lasso and how it inspired a metaphor for fixing America's bad breath. We'll talk about what it was like to lose friends just for running as a Republican, and why Aaron still thinks love can bridge our political divide. And later, we'll play a game inspired by Mad Libs, where Aaron gives the halftime speech America didn't know it needed. Aaron Dimmick. Aaron, could you do us a favor? Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure, Scott. And thanks again for the opportunity to join you and Allison today for this conversation. So my name is Aaron Dimmick, born in Connecticut, but grew up mostly in the Midwest, suburbs of Indianapolis, Indiana, and Chicago, Illinois. I had an opportunity to attend our United States Naval Academy and graduated from there, became a commissioned naval officer, and was a career naval officer for a little over 20 years. My wife, Kim, and I, we've been married for over 29 years. We have 4 young adult children. And I finished my military career actually working for the Secretary of Defense, looking at leadership and character development across all the armed services. My last tour was actually at the Pentagon. And I had the opportunity to fly missions all around the globe. One actually meaningful for all kinds of reasons was off the coast of Ground Zero, New York City on September 11th, 2001, to provide imagery, surveillance, and communications through that evening, the efforts there, and then patrolling the North Atlantic coast. And then, I had that opportunity at the Pentagon. And now I've been retired for over 9 years, and I've been in the leadership, learning, and executive development space for that amount of time as an independent consultant and affiliated with several institutes of leadership over that time period as well. So awesome to join you both. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
This is like a hybrid show of conversation and comedy. And we kind of wanted to start it off by asking you, Aaron, what is your all-time favorite comedy bit?
All-time favorite comedy bit. I think immediately what comes to mind is just, pick your episode of Ted Lasso. One in particular was in season 2, and it was actually the 4th episode called that they themed it or titled it Carol of the Bells. And there's a scene in that episode that my wife and I, we've watched that episode several times, probably more than most of any episode in the series. And every single time we watch it, we just lose it because the meaning and the substance and the power of the scene is just incredible. So it's when Roy Kent's niece, Phoebe, has bad breath, and he and Keeley are actually trying to help her along because there was a young boy that made fun of her, gave her something in a package saying, hey, this will help your bad breath kind of thing. And she was just mortified.
Go away!
Phoebe.
I'm a monster!
I've spent the last 20 years in locker rooms with men. I promise you I've smelled worse.
I don't know.
Come on. I think you might be dying.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh my God.
I love too how at the root of that scene is that these characters care for each other and love each other. And that's the whole thing. I mean, we have this very funny layer on top of it of bad breath from this very little girl. Also, the juxtaposition of her being such a sweetie cutie pie and being like having the breath of a dead sailor is so funny. That's such a fun juxtaposition. I love the honesty of that too.
Yeah, there's something very human about how do you respond to people you love if you see a flaw in them. What's the most polite way of being honest about it? I mean, I think my mind raced to lots of other scenarios I've been in that don't have to do with bad breath, but like, do I really look fat in this dress? You never answer that honestly, ever. just so you know, if you're in a relationship, don't ever.
I always answer that honestly.
Okay.
Good.
Right.
Good.
Because honestly, fat is in the eye of the beholder, I feel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I do as well, Allison, just because, like, I learned very quickly with my wife, Kim, if I gave her a line of bull, like, she saw right through that. And she's like, I'm asking you because I want you to be the guardian for me looking like a fool going out in public. So if you don't tell me, who's going to tell me? Yeah.
It's also that girl code of, do I have lipstick on my teeth? I'm going to tell you because I care.
Yes, for sure. And just trying to navigate, like you said, like there's certainly a humanity component to it. And then what are the manners in which we can behave with each other that allow us to move through it, to just be able to navigate it, whatever, not knowing what it's going to look like, whatever it does look like. Now, the three of them at the end of that bit, the three of them are off to the races to try to find, a solution to this bad breath problem and then move on from there, going through the posh neighborhood. Classic.
Yeah, like three politicians walk into a bar. Are they honest with each other though? I feel like politicians are always double speaking with each other. Do you not feel that way, Aaron?
No, I think it depends on the politician. I think politician as statesmen will give you the straight stuff. The individuals that have a sensibility about them in that arena that actually are able to speak to the real and then come up with the behaviors and practices to be able to address. Because at least in my mind's eye, for what's the reason for American politics? It's national flourishing and personal happiness. Like the pursuit of those two things, I think ideally and very practically can motivate behaviors in the political arena. I will also caveat that by saying, yeah, I think there are plenty of politicians, especially today, that will pay lip service and then stab each other behind the back. I know that goes on plenty.
Wow, I really appreciate this inside look here. I feel like I'm privy to something amazing to be able to talk to you today. I always feel like when I watch the news and let's say like a politician clearly had a terrible speech and they interview the person on there who shares the same political party, you never see the commentator being interviewed be like, yeah, that sucked. Yeah, if it's a fellow Republican or if it's a fellow Democrat, I feel they always stand by, they're like, that person's speech, it was that they nailed it. They nailed it. So I just don't think there's honesty like in the media about pointing out the flaws of someone within their own party. I just don't see that often.
Feels like a lot of posturing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I rarely see honesty when it comes to the pointing out the flaws of someone in your own party is, I guess, what I'm saying.
This feels like we're all afraid to look wrong in some way, shape, or form. Like we have this culture where it's not okay to be wrong ever, which is like the antithesis of growth. I think you're supposed to be wrong. You're supposed to mess it up so that you can learn and grow and be better as like a human being from a human perspective. So then how do we apply that to our politicians and to how we perceive them through media,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can certainly use more of that these days. I think maybe it's my guess is my hunch just based on some reading, talking with folks over the past decades, and then certainly reading in history. Like I think it's ebbed and flowed. I think in every culture it ebbs and flows from both an self-accountability standpoint and then that of the public. But I was just speaking with a gentleman yesterday, actually, that was part of the Ross Perot campaign in 92, which is fascinating. It literally just happened yesterday. And it was a completely random reach out.
I know Ross Perot from a kid's show. Are you familiar with the
Really?
Nickelodeon show All That? That's the only reason why.
Totally.
There was like a tiny little girl, a Phoebe in and of herself, who was like, I'm Ross Perot. And like, that's all I know about Ross
I
Perot
see.
is like, as
Oh, I
a
see.
child, there was like this kid's version of
I
SNL
see.
called All That. And there was a little girl who did a political impression of Ross Perot.
That's
Sorry,
what
I interrupted your story about Ross Perot.
No, totally good. I appreciate the texture actually for your frame of reference. And but no, just chatting with this person because his running mate for when he ran for the presidency as an independent against George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton in the 92 race. His running mate for vice president was a gentleman by the name of Admiral James Bond Stockdale. And he was a prisoner of war. He was the leader in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam for almost 8 years. So he was a POW for 8 years and came back and was just as a fellow Academy graduate with him, as he was a couple of decades before me, obviously. But knowing a little bit about him, he actually taught ethics at the Naval Academy when I was there and came over a couple of times to help out with our cohort. And then also talking to this gentleman yesterday as a part of the campaign, it fits right in with what you're talking about. Here's this literally a war hero, which he was, a stoic, which he claims is the only reason that he survived Hanoi for that amount of time in his senior leadership position with the other prisoners there. And when he was invited to run with Ross, he was not good with the media. There was something about the transmission, cameras being in front. Like there are those of us that we don't do well in front of a camera or in front of electronic media. And, but to get him in a room with a group of volunteers, just brilliant. Like you would see it come out in him and be able to just relate with folks, pass along a message, and then be able to chat with them and leave. He did that brilliantly, but he was hung up when certainly the vice presidential debate with Dan Quayle and Al Gore didn't do well at all because he was overcome. He was overwhelmed. He had physical limitations because of his injuries sustained while a POW. And at the end of that, each of those sessions, the gentleman I was speaking with yesterday had said that the team did tell him. They were like, hey, that was awful. What can we do to support you to try to help out and improve next time? And he was receptive to it. Of course he was. He was trying to, that wasn't his element, but they gave him the straight stuff. And he certainly, I mean, if you look back, he got lambasted in the media for looking incompetent, not looking confident, which is exactly the way it was in the media. Like you got what you saw because that was not his environment of being able to perform well. And so the team tried to work with that. And they did call that out in the press a couple of times even. So to your point, it has been, I mean, that's been a long time ago. That was well over 30 years ago, but it has happened. And I think it should and needs to happen again. And you're right. There's some dynamic here going on that even when you're wrong and or make a mistake in the public eye, to not own it has been accepted. Like it's actually been okay. They may address it for the 6 hours for the remainder of the day. And then the next day we turn a new page. And it just seems that's what I think is, if I hear you right, Scott, that's one of the things that's probably the most concerning.
Absolutely. Yes. And if there's like a queer pink elephant in the room and it's within your own party, you don't point it out, Yeah. It's just, we just don't call out the obvious imperfections in our own party. And it would be awesome if all the parties pointed out the imperfections of their own in-party. If everyone did that about their in-party, I mean, that would be pretty cool.
Well, you would think that there would be some energy and some power in numbers from the standpoint that if the majority said, yeah, this is not right, we know it's not right, and we need to change it, then you would think that would hold some sway. And I'm curious as to why it hasn't. Like, what is it that they're holding against each other beyond perhaps just the threats of primary races running against folks that are descending or the dissension in the ranks kind of behavior, or they're not towing the party line, then now they're a target. But is that really true? Or is there something else behind it? Even the Epstein files like what's been most recent about this particular administration.
Talk about it.
For literally a client list in February being on the Attorney General's desk, and now there isn't one. Like, so which is it? Like, the American people would just like to know, like, literally, which is it?
It's such a good point, Aaron. There's this kind of feeling that if you don't double down on something, you look weak.
Yeah.
And yet I think the American public craves authenticity. Like, I think there's just that idea. We look weak if we don't double down. But I actually think that if a lot more politicians were just more honest, they would look stronger.
Correct.
Am I too innocent in thinking that? What do you think, Allison?
Well, this whole time I'm like, this feels like trying to get a parent to go to therapy. You know what I mean? This feels like, and maybe you guys don't relate to that, but like, this feels like getting somebody of another generation to do something that you find helpful within your own generation. And they're going to be like, well, I'm going to do the thing that I have been doing. And who are you to tell me otherwise? You know what I mean? I personally think that, yeah, that is a sign of strength to be able to look at yourself and look at your flaws and want to get better. Yeah.
Yes. But unfortunately, not everyone agrees with that perspective.
It's not for the culture right now.
I think it's just been interesting to see for probably the last, I'd say, better part of a year now. There are, rather than do that or face that, there are federal level politicians that have retired, resigned, and left. And for some, it's just been leaving in silence. For others, it's actually empowered them to speak against and up and vote against, because they now know they're not going to be primaried because they're leaving. They've publicly declared a year and a half from now, I'm not running again, or 2.5 years ago. So I think there's an interesting dynamic where folks are trying to navigate it, but it's to try to also self-preserve as well, where they're not fully, and for whatever reason, I'm sure there are a multitude of reasons, but they're not fully owning it. They're not just saying, yeah, I'm sticking around, I'm going to continue to fight. And I know this is wrong. Like, this is just, or it's not appropriate, or it's not going to lead to growth and productivity. This is something that I know in a year or two is going to come back to haunt us. Like, having those kinds of genuine conversations. But you're right. They're in the military, at least, we referred to them as self-flicking ice cream cones, which is a different way to say echo chamber. Where on your team, regardless of if you make mistakes, they're going to be pumping you up just to plow through and then, live to survive another day. But for the ones I think that take it seriously, there's something to be said for that. And the absence of it, I think, is what we're continuing to take note of. And that will continue to grow. Like, those behaviors not being demonstrated, folks not talking against certain things within any administration, to be able to have those conversations with the public and, more importantly, to your team, to keep yourselves honest. I think that's a path that we definitely need to nurture again. I think it exists. It's existed, as I mentioned before, in times past. We can't go back to history, if I may, for George Washington, like actually in Annapolis saying, yeah, if we want to move forward with this government, we can't have a military person as president. So I'm resigning my commission in the military, and now I'm a civilian, and I'm happy, if that's what you're asking, to be our first president. Now, that's way oversimplified with devoid of emotion. But the thinking that goes into that's statesmanship. That's actually being able to partition, self-evaluate, and say, hey, I know these two things are in conflict with each other. So how is it I can behave in a way that actually engenders the spirit, the American spirit that we've just kind of garnered over the last decades? We've now won in the revolution, and now we're figuring out how to make a better government beyond the Articles of Confederation. So I said a lot there. You all are great listeners.
Aaron, this is so good. I want to hear more of your ideas about how you would mend the political cultural divide. I want you to lay on the couch and free associate with us. We're the Freuds here.
Oh,
this is amazing. So we literally got here, just so I'm clear, from a clip about bad breath, and now we're here talking.
And now we're talking about how do you mend the?
Yeah, absolutely. Which I find fascinating, because there's a human proposition to this as well, right? If we're going to call America out and try to help America with the bad breath, as an analogy that we may be having right now. Like, how can we remedy this? I think it's a wonderful question, and I think it's multi-layered. A couple of thoughts that I have that come to mind are just taking advantage of an opportunity to say loud and clear publicly, in many instances, what is being done is agitating how we actually feel about ourselves as citizens of the United States. And I truly think we're continuing to bear witness each day about things that are chipping away at the fabric of the ideal for America. And I mentioned it before. I think that the goal of American politics, and it's been replicated around the globe, but it's that pursuit of national flourishing and personal happiness. And we see things on a repeated basis that are detracting from that and have been for years. And so how do you counter that? First, you call out the reality. Like what we're seeing each day, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel American. It doesn't feel representative or indicative of what we know we're capable of. So that's one. And then the other, I think, is very practical from the standpoint that we have to have some different voices in the political arena and in the political environment. And they're out there, but they get suppressed by both the two primary parties. And there is a way, there are plenty of groups out throughout the country that have been trying this for years, some decades, and they have resources that if they didn't fight against each other, they could actually pool those resources to be able to influence more of a national conversation. And quite frankly, that's what, I'll go back to Ross Perot, that's what he actually was able to accomplish. He got 19% of the vote. He didn't get any electoral college numbers, but he did have 19% of the popular vote. But throughout that campaign, he was very specific on economic issues and balancing the budget. And what happened when in the debates with both Bush and Clinton, he made those points. He was able to get on stage and articulate them. They both agreed with him and said, yes, we absolutely have to do that. Yes, we absolutely have to do that. And 2 years later, the Clinton administration was well on its way to actually balancing the budget, which it accomplished in 1998. And we haven't been there since. So if for no other reason, I mean, folks can talk about Elon Musk and the folks that have the voice today and bringing in billionaires to try to provide resources. But I think it's a much deeper structural conversation that can help. To your point, a little long-windedness here, again, based on the invitation of the question, Scott, and I appreciate it. But there is, like, to just show up as a billionaire, say, yeah, let's form an America party and get going. It's way more intertwined than that and way deeper from a limiting standpoint than that, if that makes sense. Yeah. You have to corral the folks that have been at this for years to be able to try to either put forth a third party candidate, alternate party candidate, or an independent that actually garners enough public voice that starts to influence the behaviors necessarily of the two primary parties.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughtfulness. First of all, like from the get-go, you've been pretty thoughtful in everything you've been saying. So I really appreciate it. Now you identify, your pronouns are Republican, right? That's how you identify as a Republican?
Yes. Okay. I'm a right of center Republican.
So this is a question I have for you. A lot of people on the left feel that anyone who has supported Trump disqualifies them immediately as being serious about bridging the cultural divide. Yeah. How do you respond to people on the left that say something like that?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity. Actually, one thing I did refrain from offering was I did have the opportunity to run for office against our former congressman here in Florida, Matt Gaetz, and I did that last year. And by just saying I was running in the Republican primary, there was a default assumption that I was an avid Trump supporter. There are things that I think the administration previously, in an anticipation of what was going to happen in the event that they did win, I was excited about because they were material from a public policy standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, from an execution standpoint in delivering the services to citizens. Plenty of questions there, but I focused in on the successes of the administration and was anticipatory with that. My wife, Kim, and I did lose several friends just by saying we were running as a Republican. We had been friends for 10, 15, 20 years. And just because I was a Republican, now I had the Trump label on me. And so we lost them. The interesting thing for the two of us was there were actually people that, because they know us, that were Democrat and independent, that were jumping for joy that I was running in the Republican primary, because they, again, knew about us, knew who we were, and knew the reasons that we were challenging our former congressman. And that was even more invigorating. And so there can be ways to have these conversations so that when you get to know the person, which is hard to do, mind you, especially for someone that it was a no name ID, no publicity, and just hopping into a race like this, to be able to engage folks, that's what it takes, so they know you at a little bit more personal and not superficial level. And then once that occurs, it's like, oh, this is a reasonable human. I can actually chat with this person. And that's where I would try to go with all of this. It's in particular for our district is Veterans Affairs. It's the highest concentrated military and military retiree district in the country. And so to make sure that the services for veterans were sustained, that was a primary objective of mine. And so you have to know the people in the district, 760,000 folks that are in the 1st Congressional District, and allow them to know you. Where even for the voting population, the constituency, that character doesn't matter, which is really, really hard to say and acknowledge. But for a lot of voters, they're willing to put the greater than or less than sign over where they think they are going to benefit, even though the character of the person in that public office can be horribly questioned, credibly questioned.
This is such a tangent, and it's so out of left field, but so much of what you're saying is reminding me of an SNL sketch called Black Jeopardy. Are you familiar with this one with Tom Hanks? So it's maybe one of my favorite pieces of satire. Now, mind you, satire, what its definition is to reflect our society back to us. I know that word has gotten muddied in the social media sphere as of late, but it's supposed to reflect our culture and our lives and society and politics back to us in a heightened way. And Black Jeopardy from SNL, it was, of course, all these Black people on the cast who were in it. And then Tom Hanks, who was a MAGA Republican. He had like the hat and everything. And culturally, all of the questions they were all answering in lockstep with each other. He was culturally no different from anybody else on the panel until it got to this point of this greater than or less than moment of where do I benefit? Where don't I benefit? Which was a point of race. And it was a point of race. And that's also very funnily where they ended the sketch, because you got to end the sketch on a funny note. You can't be all poo-poo about it. But they ended it with Keenan being like, you better not. Like, and it was like, yeah, that's so funny. But the truth of it is this sentiment, right? Of where is that greater than or less than moment for you? What is it for you that you're going to say, well, we are the same up until this point for me, where I know I can benefit or where I know it will hurt me personally, as opposed to thinking of the greater picture.
That's correct. And all indiscretions aside or notwithstanding, as represented by the behaviors for the person that might be in the political office that we're voting for, you're exactly right. To what extent do I benefit or not having that person in office? And I can park the character conversation, because even though this person might not be so great as a person, whether it's I'm part of the Republican Party, so I'm going to vote Republican, or I'm going to hold my nose and vote for this candidate because I know it stinks, but I certainly don't want an independent or a Democrat to win. Those types of conversations where that greater than or less than symbol will flip. It definitely will. And if you're hoping for someone to save the day, like there are plenty of people that will fight against someone's opportunity to save the day because it's not in their best interest.
Yeah.
And it is. It's a fascinating conversation. Scott, you look like you're itching to share something, my friend.
It's interesting. Politics is interesting because not everything is an antagonism. Sometimes it's just one group of people don't care about an issue as much as another group of people care about an issue. And that really angers the people who really care about an issue. They're like, why don't you care about pizza as much as we care about pizza? And they're like, well, we actually like pasta, but we're not saying that pizza sucks. We're just saying pasta is more important to us. And then, and that just ups. And so I feel like a lot of fighting is not actually that like there's a zero sum, or that like one group of people vehemently hates what the other group of people loves. It's just that, people differ in their priorities and differ in their goals. So I guess that's my question, is how can we create a world where we are, dare I say, respectful of the fact that not everyone cares as much, not everyone gives a shit as much about what you care about, and why can't we all recognize that?
Agreed. I think there is a degree of recognition, and there are some folks that will waft those, they'll fan those flames intentionally. And I think that's what one element that has been going on both sides, the extremes on both sides, is to paint every picture as an antagonistic picture. And we have to win this, 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 whether it's perceived or real, to maintain power and influence, or just to say, yeah, we were the winners. I think there's a very real dynamic there. But I also would agree or build on what you had just mentioned, Scott, which I think there's actually an opportunity to give a voice to the silent majority. The folks that are actually not this, not that, they're exhausted. They know that what has happened over the last probably couple of decades, just with the changes in and out to varying degrees and the increasing national debt, things like that, that will fuel these conversations. I think there absolutely is a growing middle, for lack of a better term, or independently minded voter and citizen that truly is done with what has gone on. And there's the opportunity there. Maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 65%. I don't know. But to give a voice to that silent majority so that they feel that they can actually enter now beyond some of the folks that have, to amplify that, to lead to maybe some structural change, get to open primaries, get to different elements even within the voting process, to allow for different voices, different folks that are plenty capable of coming in for these positions and move beyond where we're at today. It's not going to get rid of either primary party, maybe ever, but I think there is an opportunity to influence that national conversation by running up the middle. And at least that's one thing that comes to mind when you ask that question. I don't think you would have everybody on board for being able to address what you're wanting to address, because there are people that are antagonistic. They love being in that world. They think they're being successful, even when it's something that's wrong. And we need to somehow hurdle over those folks to then keep running in a direction that we know is going to be better for the United States of America.
I can appreciate that. I personally identify as somebody who is way more left, but I like to, oh man, I almost said be a free thinker, and then that made me feel type of way. Oh man. Maybe I need to sit in timeout. I don't know.
I identify as a free thinker. Just saying.
Okay.
If that empowers you at all.
And you know what, Scott? Go off, King. Okay?
Yes!
Go off, King. I identify very left, and I like to consider myself somebody who can understand where people are coming from, because I feel like the root of where we're all coming from is typically the same. It's how we're getting there to these ideas. I think that differs. I think ultimately people want to feel safe. Ultimately, people want to feel seen, heard, valued. And I think that it's a matter of how we go about that. Are you going about it through a fear-based mindset? Or are you going about it, through a scarcity mindset?
I really love all this. Yes. And I'm really trying to play improv here.
Improv.
And I want to just a little bit devil's advocate, perhaps, with my end. I think that I love the point about the silent majority, and I'm with you on all that. And I also think it's important to recognize the people who are the loudest are usually the ones that are most in pain, though. Like there's something there where, like, like a lot of people are silent because they're comfortable, and
That's a great point.
and not always the case. It's not always the case, but I think that sometimes politicians make fun of or belittle the loud people. But I just think there's like a human point I want to make, which is I do think I try to look beneath the surface in a lot of cases, and even with the quote loud people, the loud minority, recognize that they're loud for a reason. They're a lot of them are in real pain, like they don't feel like their voice is heard anywhere. And I know how I feel when I feel like I'm being silenced, or I can't express how I feel. Like if I have if I don't know, if someone cuts my arm off and I'm like, my arm is cut off. Will someone listen to me? I'm gonna raise my voice to be heard.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be shut down for that because my arm was cut off. Be like, oh, well, you just listen to the silent majority who doesn't have their arm cut off. I actually want to be listened to.
That reminds me too of like, I also heavily identify as a middle child, and like going into this world of comedy is my way of like reaching out for that attention, that I maybe didn't get as much of. Right. So I get that. We're all just kind of children still walking this earth. And every now and again, you're going to get upset in the middle of a target. Right. Because I don't know, your arm got cut off. That was, I'm sorry, the arm got cut off did throw me a bit. I liked it a lot. I was also like, your arm got cut off.
Like, I'm not going to be silent about that.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. No, I thought that was a really great job to really raise the stakes of the point you were making.
Yeah.
It did catch my attention more.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I try to think of all this like from an integration perspective, like how can we, from a yes and perspective, I should say, like, yeah, how can we recognize that there is a silent majority, that we lose all that when we focus too much on the extremes, while also, just a lot of people don't talk in yes and terms about this stuff, while also still caring about the loud people who maybe have a lot more minority interests. Maybe yes, it's true that the majority doesn't have those interests, but even at the majority, as human, compassionate people, like, we're still allowed to care. Like, it doesn't mean we shouldn't like we don't have to care because it's not our issue.
It goes back to what you had mentioned. It doesn't have to be zero sum. Like, you don't have to lose in order for me to win. Like, we can figure out through dialogue and debate and decision how we can actually move forward so that everyone benefits. Like, that's the perennial proposition, the ethereal proposition.
This reminds me of my favorite quote of all time, and I use this in improv freaking constantly, which is, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. Correct. I think the ultimate ending of that situation is you light up a room, right?
Yeah.
Like, extending that grace or understanding, that humanity, does not take away from your own. It also doesn't take away from your pain, I don't think. Like me, if my arm is cut off and I'm noticing you and your leg is cut off, me noticing, hey, your leg's cut off, that's rough stuff. How can I help you? Doesn't take away from my pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe to bridge the gap here even a little bit more is, you had mentioned fear and scarcity, Allison. How about love? Like, I mean, when's the last time we actually had a proposition which was, hey, we're talking, even right now in this session, this conversation is because we care. We give a damn about what we're experiencing, and we know it's not quite right. So how is it that we can change it and address it? And there's I think, truly a love component here that allows for love of self, love of other, and then love of nation. Like, people in the military and in law enforcement, EMTs, like, you name it, for folks that play in environments that are incredibly demanding for physical and life-threatening reasons, we don't go in there not loving who we're operating with, because we know at some point I might have to give my life so that you live, which is completely irrational. So what bridges that irrationality as a human being? I legitimately love who I'm serving with. I know we're in it for a good cause. And so we go forth and do whatever. And each organization has their own version of that. And when we're with a group of humans that we legitimately love each other, common decency, human dignity, respect, even though we may not like each other all the time, like there's a foundational love component that can overcome fear and scarcity. And I truly think that there's a way, and so those things can happen on a day-to-day basis, even for us at our own local level. Who are the folks that you're talking about, Allison and Scott, for who can we help? Legitimately, who can we help out? And because I love what's going on, I love the community. To not be afraid to use that word, I think might be helpful moving forward. Because if we're in it for the appropriate reasons and we want to make a difference for each other and lift ourselves out of this, just like we have in the past, in order to do it again, we need that type of language because it's more accurate for what is actually a reflection of what we know we need to get beyond some of the challenges that we've already talked about so far.
Well, that was absolutely beautiful, Aaron. And I'm sorry to interrupt this kumbaya moment, but the title of this show is "This Might Be Awkward," and we're just not being awkward enough.
No.
So
I know, right?
Let me help us with that.
Please. I thought the cutting off the arm moment was good, but
good. Oh, Aaron's like, don't worry, Scott. You've been plenty awkward. Okay, thanks, Aaron. Thanks.
You bet.
Appreciate you pointing that out. Let's talk about your stance on immigration. Okay, so you believe that immigration, abortion, and gun rights are perhaps most polarizing. But can you explain your own stance? Because you do acknowledge that it's a polarizing view, but you still believe that your view is compassionate. I saw you write that somewhere. So, in the spirit of awkwardness, can you tell? Maybe there's something we all can disagree on here. I have no idea. I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So to speak a little bit on immigration, there's no question. I'll just be upfront with this. The mandate, quote, mandate that the Trump administration feels they received from the national election results. There's no question, at least in my mind, that this is an overcorrection to show that the nation is actually doing something about it. I also think that there are plenty of symptoms that will come out, language most likely. I mean, we hear it on a regular basis, but I think there are certain things, both beneficial and not beneficial, that will come out as we keep moving forward over the next year or two, because there's no question. Again, this is my perspective. You asked for my perspective, that there has been an overcorrection to make a point, and that at some point I think we will, for maybe no other reason than resources, even though the new budget bill allowed for additional spending. There is a manner in which we can go about this that is both best for the security of the nation and not so fear-inducing as if to say, well, if I'm if I'm a naturalized citizen right now, my status is in jeopardy. Like, we need to be able to move beyond that, because that's not beneficial for the person that's constantly questioning, are they coming after me? Because that neuters them, that makes them ineffective for trying to be a productive society member in the United States. So we have to acknowledge that. I will say there's also a component that came out in the voter numbers was that the naturalized and legal immigrant population that increased its support for the Trump administration this November was precisely because they're tired of the narrative that so many people are here illegally and undocumented. They did it the appropriate way, and they would like everybody else to do it the appropriate way. So I think there has to also be an acknowledgement of that. And then once you get past those two elements, it's a structural thing internal to the federal government. Do we have enough team members in government to be able to process as many folks as possible, so they're not waiting as many years in some instances as they have to wait to become naturalized citizens? So I think there is, right now, it was in the minds of many during the Biden administration that nothing was being done. And now we've overcorrected that we have people knocking on doors in masks seemingly constantly now, putting folks in jeopardy of losing their naturalization status, my hope is that as we continue to move forward, the pendulum comes back the other way, because we will have reined in the folks that, and the charge was the folks that they had legal issues, federal level issues against them. They were murderers, convicts. Though that population, if we zeroed in on those individuals, and we've been able to assist local governments with removing those threats to society, and that is taken care of, I think that's an incredibly healthy thing. And then as we continue to work further along, it will see less and less threat, because the numbers necessarily should go down for the folks that should be deported and handled appropriately, that shouldn't be here, and then enable the folks that want to come here. Because make no bones about it, even with the national narrative, plenty of people from around the globe still see the U.S. as the place to go. And that's the challenge. Even with all the stuff that we've been exposed to the last, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, people know that this is still a land of opportunity. It's just challenged right now because of all the things going on. So we have to figure out a way to wrap up what has been going on, make it right, do the structural elements, and maybe the additional monies that were sent ICE's way and a couple of other organizations that will help with that, so that the processing looks a little bit different. And then we get away from this constant fear of, am I next? So hopefully some of those thoughts make sense.
Yeah, it does. And maybe this is the first full circle moment with the bad breath comedy thing. But you sound like a pretty reasonable human to me.
Well, thank you.
I assume, and let me know if my assumption is correct, if it gets to the point where it's pretty clear that authoritarianism has really is unfairly being increasing to the point of view where just if people just start saying things that they disagree with the administration, and then they pull them out of the United States, Aaron, you're going to call out the bad breath, right?
I would be happy to address the bad breath. And then I'm going to throw a mint or two while we're on the way to the dentist to figure out what is it, what is it? Oh, okay. So you're on an antihistamine or some antibiotic that is the reason that you have bad breath, like Phoebe. So let's go ahead and give you some medicine that addresses the underlying issue, which is that having that antibiotic and antihistamine because she's allergic to cats. And now we get to having decent smelling breath again. Like, it can be done. It has been done, and it will be done. Like, there's a reason that our nation has been around for 250 years. And there are plenty of good, reasonable people in the country that will not let that go away. That's my overly idealistic and optimistic perspective, but I've seen it. I've seen it in the military. I've seen it in our district. So yeah, I'm way more high on energy with the opportunity we have before us, while acknowledging the reality of some of the garbage that's going on right now that we have to wade through, which also ties me back into Jim Stockdale. There's a concept called the Stockdale paradox, which is what he was additionally famous for when he was talking to Jim Collins, that wrote Good to Great. He actually was talking about the fact that surviving in Hanoi Hilton was just a tremendous challenge. And so what was it that he saw that allowed folks to go through, navigate that maelstrom for years on end? And he actually said that it was the folks that were overly optimistic that didn't make it out, because they were constantly disappointed until they got depressed. They thought, hey, Thanksgiving's coming up. Certainly we're going to be released. Maybe Christmas will be released. And then Christmas would come and go and they wouldn't make it. Mentally, they were checked out. And he said, with the Stockdale paradox, first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the reality of our situation while never losing hope that the ideal outcome will come about. So it's that element that allows us to continue to be human and know that there are times. The proposition with the founders, with the construction of the Constitution, was not that we were going to avoid times like this. They knew human nature would throw times like this at us. And the structure is what actually allows the three branches of government to get locked back in and figure out how to lift ourselves out of this. So it's the mere presence of it not being done well, the how, that actually will invigorate, I truly believe, the citizenry to make adjustments moving forward and address it, because we have and will continue to do so.
You come at all of this from a very reasonable place and a very, human first perspective. As someone who I live right by where ICE had just militarized and walked through a park. That's like my park. I live there, and it's scary. I carry a passport with me at all times because I'm brown, and I think that simply that it's an overcorrection. I think that's maybe just one symptom of the issue at large, because this overcorrection is reacting to people's bias in this way. Not reacting to, but like coming from this bias that affects me, even though I'm my dad is black and my mom is white, and my parents and their parents and their parents are all from here. I still feel afraid. I don't know. And it makes me really question this idea of I did this the right way and you did it the wrong way. What is the wrong way, and how does that harm? You know what I mean? Of like, if we're coming from it from a human perspective, because I saw somewhere recently, I think less than 10% of the people who are being detained are criminals. Something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that means that 90%.
Sure.
I mean, I could do a Google search, but there's the majority of them are not criminals. And I'm like, well, just because you didn't fill out the paperwork the right way or whatever it was, does that mean that you're less human and you deserve less than human treatment? Because I don't think so.
Agreed. Agreed. And Allison, do you mind if I ask what is the root of your fear? Like, if you were to say
the root of my fear,
in a sentence or two, what is the root of your fear?
The root of my fear, it is, I mean, the bias, the racial bias of folks, that people are just getting snatched up, and people being confused for other people being, detained who don't even deserve to be detained in the first place. And a lot of it is just how they look. It's just how they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually literally no different from me if we're going based off just looks. Because I can't tell you how many times people just come up speaking Spanish to me and I have to be like, I am sorry, I took sign language in high school and I don't know Spanish, even though I look like this, So that's where that fear is coming from. And I cannot imagine, if I'm feeling this way, I cannot imagine how my neighbors are feeling. And my street, quiet. It is messed up how quiet it is. There are usually kids out. There are usually people walking to and from stores. Nothing. It is a fucking ghost town. Sorry for my language, but it's a ghost. And not just my neighborhood where the big scary thing happened, but kind of all over Los Angeles. It's been much quieter, and it feels really dystopian and frightening of how did we get here?
That's incredibly helpful. I appreciate the additional texture.
We want to, bridge this divide. And I know you like sports. I love sports. And I am a big fan of a team dynamic. It's like when I was growing up, I love the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to make it a goal of mine to mention it each episode of this podcast, how much I freaking love the Suns, even though they're bad.
You like the Suns?
Growing up, my favorite player was Steve Nash because I thought he was a good leader. And he saw everybody's strengths and weaknesses. And he never went up and just chucked a three. That was never his first attempt. His first thing he did was he evaluated the court. He saw where everybody was. He saw everybody's strengths and weaknesses. And when he was needed to, he would chuck up the three and swish it, And I think that is a very American thing, even though he's Canadian. I think that that's a very American thing of like, we all have these different parts to play. And how do we come together to make this a winning team. You know,
a winning team for the most citizens as possible, right? Like, yeah, like there are plenty of people that felt fine and were silent for all the right reasons, as Scott had mentioned before, under the Biden administration and now under the Trump administration. But that's I believe if we're seeing things similarly, especially today, like that's a sliver of a sliver within the population. Like there are 330 million citizens in the United States, 280 of which are actually registered voters and take part in elections. And then we had 170 million that weighed in, right? And then it was or 130, and it was a 65 million that actually voted for our present administration. So that means there are plenty of people that don't feel this is the best right now. So how can we change that? How can we do something about that?
Yes, and I just want to thank you, Aaron. I want to thank you, Allison, for the point you made, but I want to thank Aaron for listening to Allison. Like, as I was watching him as you were talking, and I was thinking that I wish there were more politicians that didn't just feel like a knee-jerk need to be defensive or to do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you didn't look to chuck up the 3 when I was talking. You saw the core. I feel like that segues us into this last little bit. It is a comedy bit. I'm just going to intro it real quick. So it's time for us to play a bit of Mad Libs or Mad Conservatives, or rather maybe Mad Moderates. I don't know what you want. Because just like sexuality, politics is a spectrum. Maybe it's a binary, or maybe politics is really just the great divide. Regardless, in this segment, much like the current times, America is in trouble. And we are more divided and polarized than ever. So, Aaron, I'm going to have you give us Americans a rousing halftime speech that is surely going to bridge the political divide in these pernicious times. So, that's what we're going to do. The catch is, Aaron, you don't know what this speech is that I wrote. And to make it more interesting, I want you to have a creative say in it. So I'm going to source a bunch of random words from you and Scott to kind of help fill this speech out. And this speech is going to bring us all together, if you will. So the first thing I want to source from you, what's a name you would not call your mother, or the name of one of your mother's friends?
That we would not call our mother, or one of their...
That you would not call your mother, or the name of one of your mother's friends.
Gotcha. I would never call my mother a bitch.
Oh, shit.
Well, I call my mom bitch, but it's more like bitch. You know what I mean?
I got you.
It's more, it's in term of endearment. Yeah. Okay.
Let's go with bitch. Yeah.
Bitch. Who knows?
That'll be a fun speech. Yeah.
Yeah, we're already off to a good start.
We're already off to a great start. What is the name of a group of people?
Thruple.
Thruple.
Don't Google that, Aaron.
Wouldn't think of it, Scott.
Give me a word or two of something that divides us as a people, as a nation, as a culture.
You said one word?
1, 2. What divides us? I can fill this one in. Selfish. Oh, R?
Oh, no.
What were you going to say?
Selfish?
Yeah. No, Allison, I want you to go. Yeah.
Okay. I said selfishness.
Okay. That's a good one.
Give me an adjective. Kind of word that describes things. A descriptive word.
Feverish.
Masterful.
Oh, masterful. Is that what you said, Aaron? Masterful?
Yes, I said masterful.
Cool. Masterful.
I heard feverish and masterful.
I said feverish.
All right. And then what's keeping it G-rated? A body part. Could be internal, could be external.
Allison. Thank you for that clarification. She's like, keep it G-rated. Scott.
I'll say hand.
Hand. Okay.
Earlobe.
All right. How about a noun? Person, place, thing. Idea.
USA.
Mars.
All right. And now a verb.
Inspire.
Eat.
An affirmative exclamation. Like you're fist pumping. What are you saying?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Boulder Dash. I'm trying to play improv here.
Boulder Dash. don't know that I spelled Boulder Dash right. And what is something that unites us? I feel like we've talked about a few of them, right?
Cute cat videos on YouTube.
Cute cat videos?
Like, who's fighting over that, you know? Like,
yeah.
Hey, I was just curious. Have you done improv before? Have you
I have not.
taken a class or anything? Okay.
Really?
I have not. This is awesome.
You're doing great. I mean, you're like...
That's wild to me. I thought you were like an old pro at this.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on. Come on. This is what
So
you
much
all
of
do.
improv is listening
Yeah.
and adding ideas and
Agreed.
being present.
Yeah.
Well, I
Amazing.
appreciate it. No, this has been awesome. But no, I would love to, but I have not dabbled in the improv.
Well, you are now.
Hey,
There we go.
great. We'll start. Scott and I are players on the team. We're in the locker room. It's halftime. What are we doing out there, Scott?
I don't know. But if we're not careful, the home team isn't going to be able to come out on top.
Oh, shut up, Scott. It's Coach Dimmick.
You the one who be talking, you bitch.
Bitch? Who you calling bitch?
Well, Team America.
Fuck yeah. Oh, sorry, Coach.
Well, Team America, I know it looks like it's over. We are 250 yards of play into the game, and we are down. We could give up, sure. This team was just an experiment after all. The underdog of the thruple made the greatest comeback, only to make it to the playoffs and choke. Our quarterback, Donald J. Trump, isn't calling good plays and has sown seeds of doubt and deceit amongst this team, along with the help of selfishness. And now our quarterback has all but defected to the other teams in the pursuit of his own personal glory and feverish masterful.
Mm.
But what the other team doesn't know, what our quarterback doesn't know, is that our bench runs deep. They may have our playbook, but we have hand.
We have so many hand. We have hand upon hand upon hand.
Yeah, don't
And-
look at me and tell me my arm's cut off.
Yes, and in fact, my hand actually grew back just a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I told you about that, Allison, from that thing. So I actually they put in a new hand that is even a more enhanced hand.
More enhanced hand?
It has a claw.
Oh,
yeah.
Coach Dimmick's talking. Shh.
Players, they may have our playbook. We may be down on the scoreboard. But what doesn't show up in playbooks or on the scoreboard or in highlights is USA. That's right. We have USA, Mars, and Inspire on our side. Now,
Coach,
don't
is
sit around all stiff like Matt Gates' Botox and filler. We get out there and eat.
Fantastic!
Because who are we?
Bitch!
What? No, we're Team America.
I mean,
Heck yeah!
And QCAD videos will win us the game. Now let's go out there and boulder dash the opposition for America.
Yeah! Fantastic! Wow. Dare I say, we did it, Joe.
I got chills.
I think we fixed what's wrong with politics and united the people towards a greater good. Way to go,
100%.
Coach Dimmick. We've got to
100%.
go out there and boulder dash.
It was a boulder dashing and cat videos. Like that helps everything.
As we all know, for America.
That's right. And we have to maintain, I will say, and you all know this better than most, humor is what sees us through, right? Like even in the worst environments humans can find ourselves in. The levity and gravity at the same time that comes from a little bit of humor, to not take ourselves or others too seriously, gives us reinvigorated energy to actually address new problems. So it's just huge. It's just huge. And the only other thing I was going to offer was the fact that we seem to feel like politics is everything right now. Well, guess what? Politics isn't everything, but politics should be accessible to everyone. And I think that's a component that has just continued to be overplayed. Folks are exhausted, and we need to figure out a way to give the White House and the citizenry what it deserves. Giving the White House back to the citizenry is, I think, that first step. I really do. And it's going to be a conversation that we continue to have in the years to come. But it has to start somewhere, and we need to build on it. So why not now? Why not here? Have the love overcome the fear and the scarcity, and throw a little bit of humor in along the way to be able to bring people together, legitimately uniting under a different banner that is not fear and intimidation, to be able to make things better as we move forward. It's happened in the past, and it'll happen again in the future. I'm sure of it.
Aaron, thank you so much for coming in and playing with us. I think your campaign slogan should be, let's call out bad breath.
There you go.
I think
and then that begs the question, what the heck is he talking about? So now you're right into the conversation, right?
That should be your new campaign slogan.
And then if I Google that and I find out it comes from Ted Lasso.
Even better. Even better.
Phoebe's bad breath. Absolutely. Well, what fun. Holy cow.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just thank you so much for playing. And
yes.
Thanks for the invitation to the game. This was awesome.
This Might Get Awkward is hosted by me, Allison Reese, and Scott Barry Kaufman. Our producers are Julia Pinheiro, Kelly Leonard, and Gabrielle Yasek. Our editor is Peter Cooper. Mix and master by George Miata. Graphics by Alec Hall. Special thanks to Melissa Miller, APM Music, and the Argosy Foundation. This podcast is a production of The Second City.